You sent it. You know you did. You typed it carefully, maybe even rewrote it 2 or 3 times before finally pressing send. And then you waited. You told yourself you were not going to check your phone every 5 minutes, but you did. You told yourself it did not matter, but it did. And then the hours passed, 1-5, and nothing came back. No reply, no reaction. Not even the small mercy of a one-word response, just silence. And that silence, that single empty space where her name should have appeared on your screen, began to grow inside your chest until it filled everything. Your morning, your focus, your confidence, your sense of who you are. All of it quietly swallowed by the absence of one message from one person. If that is where you are right now, if you are sitting with that particular kind of pain, that no one around you fully understands because nothing technically happened, then stay with me. Because what I am about to share with you is not just about her not replying. It is about why that silence has the power to shake you, and more importantly, how you become the kind of man that nothing and no one can ever shake again. Let me describe what is happening inside you right now, because I want you to feel understood before I ask you to be honest with yourself. The ignored message is not just a missed notification. It is a verdict, or at least that is what your mind has turned it into. Your brain, designed to seek connection and detect rejection, immediately began constructing a story the moment she did not reply. And that story is not a gentle one. It says she saw your message and chose not to respond. It says you were not worth 2 minutes of her time. It says something changed, something shifted, something about you is now less than it was before. And the worst part is that you cannot argue with the story because you do not have enough information to disprove it. So it just sits there, inside your head, growing more detailed and more painful with every hour that passes without a response. You start analyzing your message. Was it too eager? Was it too casual? Did you say something wrong? Should you have waited longer before sending it? And before long, you are not just reviewing a text message. You are putting your entire identity on trial. And that right there is the moment you need to understand clearly and completely. Because that is not grief. That is not love. That is not even sadness. That is something far more dangerous. That is the moment when you handed your entire sense of self-worth to another person's inbox. And no man, no matter how strong, no matter how disciplined, can afford to live that way. Epictetus was not born into philosophy. He was born into chains. He was a slave in ancient Rome, a man who owned nothing, controlled nothing, not his body, not his location, not his daily existence. And yet Epictetus became one of the most psychologically free men who ever lived. Because he discovered something that most free men never understand. He discovered that there are 2 categories of things in this world. Things within our control and things outside our control. Within our control, our thoughts, our choices, our values, our responses. Outside our control, everything else, every single thing else, including whether she replies to your message, including how she feels about you, including what she decides to do with her time and her attention. Epictetus did not say this to be cold or to dismiss your pain. He said it because he understood that suffering multiplies the moment you assign your peace to something that was never yours to control in the first place. You cannot control her response. You never could. What you can control is everything that happens inside you while you wait, and everything that happens inside you when the answer turns out to be silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals, words that were never intended for an audience, words spoken from a man to himself in the raw honesty of solitude. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was not speaking as a philosopher presenting a theory. He was speaking as a man who had experienced loss, betrayal, and the quiet devastation of being misunderstood by people he cared about. He was speaking as a human being who had felt the pull of needing something from someone who was not giving it. And he kept returning to the same discipline. Not the discipline of the body, though he valued that too, the discipline of the mind. The refusal to allow external events to colonize internal peace. One ignored message, in the framework of Marcus Aurelius, is an external event. It happened outside of you. It lives in the world of things you cannot control. Your reaction to it, the meaning you assign to it, the amount of mental and emotional energy you pour into it, those live inside you. Those are yours. And right now you are giving them away freely to a situation that has not earned them. Here is where I need to be direct with you, because understanding the philosophy is only the beginning. The real test is recognizing what most men actually do in this moment, and being brutally honest about whether you have already done it or whether you are about to. The first thing most men do when a message goes ignored is send another one. They wait a few hours and then send something light, something that is designed to look casual but is actually a rescue attempt. A meme, a question that seems unrelated, a piece of news that conveniently gives them a reason to reach out again. And every single one of those follow-up messages communicates the same thing regardless of how clever the packaging is. It says, "I noticed you did not respond, and it bothered me enough to contact you again." It says, "Your silence has power over me." It says, "I need something from you." And the moment you communicate need to someone who is already creating distance, you accelerate that distance. Not because she is cruel, but because need without reciprocation does not feel like love to the person receiving it. It feels like pressure. The second mistake is the explanation. You send a message that tries to contextualize the original one. You say something like, "I was just checking in, no big deal," or you offer an interpretation of what you meant as if she misunderstood, rather than simply chose not to respond. This is the mind trying to fix a problem through words that the problem has nothing to do with. You cannot explain your way back into someone's attention. Words without emotional resonance from the other person are just noise. The third mistake is the performance. You go to your stories. You post something designed to signal that you are living your best life, that you are busy, that you are surrounded by things and people and experiences. And you watch to see if she views it. And if she does, you analyze what that means. And if she does not, you analyze that too. And now you have turned your entire life into a stage designed for an audience of one person who is not even paying attention. You are not living. You are performing for someone who has left the theater. So what does the Stoic man actually do when his message goes ignored? He does something that sounds simple, but requires a depth of discipline that most men have never developed. He does nothing, not nothing out of pride, not nothing as a strategy to make her wonder, not nothing because he is playing a game, nothing because he has decided, consciously and deliberately, that his next action will come from his values, not from his anxiety. He sits with the discomfort. He feels the sting of being ignored without reaching for something to make it stop. He lets the emotion move through him like weather, acknowledging it, not running from it, but also not building his house inside it. He does not send another message because he respects himself enough to not chase. He does not post strategically because his life is not a performance. He does not construct elaborate theories about why she did not reply because he has trained himself to separate fact from story. The fact is, she did not reply. The story is everything his anxious mind added on top of that fact. And the Stoic man is ruthlessly committed to living in facts, not stories. Seneca wrote in one of his letters, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." He was writing about distraction, about the man who cannot be still, who cannot sit with himself, who must always be reaching outward because the inward landscape feels too empty or too painful. That is what the ignored message reveals. Not something about her character or her feelings or her choices. It reveals the degree to which you have been reaching outward for something that can only be built from within. When her silence has the power to ruin your morning, your focus, your confidence, your entire sense of the day, it is not because she is powerful. It is because you have not yet built enough interior life to sustain yourself in the absence of her validation. That is the real work. Not figuring out why she did not reply. Not crafting the perfect follow-up message. Not analyzing her behavior from every possible angle. The real work is building an inner world so rich, so full, so deeply rooted in your own values and purpose and identity that the absence of any single person's attention, no matter how much you care for them, does not hollow you out. I want you to imagine two men receiving the same ignored message on the same afternoon. The first man reads the silence as confirmation of his fears. He spends the next 3 hours on his phone, cycling through checking for a response, drafting follow-up messages he does not send, scrolling through her profile, analyzing her recent activity, and finally retreating into a quiet bitterness that follows him through the rest of his day, his dinner, his sleep. He wakes up the next morning and the first thought in his mind is still her. He has surrendered an entire rotation of the earth to one unanswered message. The second man feels the sting. He is not made of stone. He is not indifferent. He genuinely cares about this person, and the silence genuinely hurts. But he makes a decision. He puts his phone face down. He goes to the gym or opens the book he has been meaning to finish, or calls a friend he has not spoken to in weeks, or works on the project that has been sitting unfinished on his desk, not because he has stopped caring, but because he refuses to let his caring become a cage. He refuses to let his love for another person become the architecture of his own captivity. He lives his day, fully, presently, and when he returns to his phone hours later and the message is still unanswered, he feels the disappointment, acknowledges it, and continues forward. Because his identity was never inside her inbox. It was never there to begin with. That second man is not born. He is built. He is built through repeated choices to return to himself when the world pulls him outward. He is built through the daily discipline of watering his own roots, instead of constantly reaching for the sun of someone else's approval. He is built through pain, through exactly the kind of pain you are feeling right now. Pain that he chose to learn from, instead of drown in. And here is what that second man discovers that the first man never reaches. He discovers that the version of himself that exists when no one is watching, when no one is validating, when no one is replying, that version is actually the most powerful version. Because it is real, it is not performed for an audience, it is not shaped by the need for external confirmation. It simply is, and a man who simply is, who exists fully and completely from the inside out, carries a quality that no ignored message, no cold shoulder, no distance can diminish. He carries dignity, not the brittle dignity of a man pretending not to be hurt, the solid, quiet, unshakable dignity of a man who knows exactly who he is, regardless of who is paying attention. This is the essence of what Stoicism offers you. Not detachment from love, not coldness toward people you care about, not the elimination of desire or connection or hope. Stoicism offers you something far more valuable than any of those things. It offers you a foundation. A place inside yourself that is genuinely yours, genuinely stable, genuinely independent of what anyone else does or says or fails to do or say. Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel. A fortress inside the mind that external events can surround but never penetrate. Her silence cannot enter that citadel unless you open the gates. And you open the gates every time you let her absence define your worth. Every time you reach out from anxiety instead of genuine desire. Every time you perform your life for an audience that is not watching. Every time you place the question of who you are inside someone else's hands. Take it back. Not aggressively. Not with bitterness. With the quiet, certain confidence of a man who has decided that his peace is not for sale, not for loan, not for surrender. Send no more messages from a place of anxiety. Live no more days in the shadow of someone else's silence. Build no more identity on the foundation of another person's attention. You felt something. That is human. You hoped for a response. That is natural. You were hurt by the silence. That is honest. But you do not have to be defined by any of it. You are more than a message sent and ignored. You are more than the story your mind constructed in the hours of waiting. You are a man in the process of becoming something that no one's absence can touch. And that process begins not when she finally replies. It begins right now in this moment, when you decide that the most important conversation you need to have is not with her. It is with yourself. The man who no longer needs another person's reply to feel complete has already won the only battle that truly matters. And that man, quietly, without announcement, without performance, without desperation, is absolutely unshakable.